Good morning and welcome to Mind the Moment's Tuesday morning meditation gathering brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. My name is Greg Topakian and I am sincerely appreciative of being able to be here with you this morning to practice mindfulness together and to explore how this practice can help us live our lives. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Helping us to live our lives with a little bit more effectiveness, a little bit more joy, a little bit more consideration, all of that. How can our practice help us live that way? So as we usually do in these sessions, I have written in a question for you in the chat box. And please take a few moments to contemplate it. And if you feel so disposed to write a few words down about your feelings about the contemplation. The question is this: why is it important? That's interesting. So some are saying it and some are not. Okay, so let me read it out for those who can't see it. Why is it important to begin to turn your attention to sensations, feelings, and thoughts in your meditation practice? Why is it important to begin to turn attention to sensations, feelings, and thoughts in your meditation practice? And I see a couple of responses already. Beautiful. To become more mindful rather than mindless brings me back to the present. But Ellie responds quite honestly by saying, I thought the goal of meditation was to have an empty mind. And so that's a very good point to make. And I'll address that today as well. It's important to be aware. And while people are thinking and writing, it helps to be more engaged with the thoughts instead of just allowing the thoughts to carry me somewhere. Beautiful. So we can build awareness when we're not meditating. Gotcha. Become more able to focus your mind where it is most helpful at that moment. Like it. Okay. So let's talk about this mindfulness path and why this turn towards sensations, feelings, and thoughts might be helpful to us. So most of us, when we begin walking on this mindfulness path, we initially learn how to settle down the body, settle down the mind a little bit. So, and with guidance so that we can begin to learn how to direct our attention to some target, to sustain attention on that target. And when the mind wanders, which it inevitably will do for us ordinary human beings, to see that and to return attention. In other words, we begin to learn how to focus, directing attention, sustaining attention. And with this capacity to focus, we tune into life a little bit more. And some of us actually begin feeling occasionally a few moments of peace, and how wonderful that is. But then what's often suggested, once we learn initially how to settle down the mind, direct, sustain, and return attention to focus, it's often suggested that we open up the panorama of our vision, of our meditative vision, to first off include what's happening in this mind and body. So instead of just being rigidly attentive to the breath or to hands touching or to feet on the floor or sound, instead of just being rigidly attentive to one target, we're encouraged to open up that vista and to check in what's happening here. Check into what's happening in the body, what sensations are known, what our feeling tones are around those sensations. And by feeling tones, what we often mean by that word is this automatic assessment by the nervous system to assess, are those sensations pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? Do we like them? Do we not like them? Or are we kind of neutral towards them? And then also to check in about what thoughts and stories are we telling in this present moment about our experience. And finally, one last component that's helpful to tune into is, if we put all this together, what is our impulse about how we might react in the moment? Can we notice all this? Now, this is happening real fast in real time. But this is very helpful to us, because think about what happens to most of us. Most of us, if we're not tuning in to all these components of life, and we look back at some recent experience, we can, hopefully without too much judgment and self-criticism, say, wow, so-and-so did this, and then I automatically responded like this, reacted like this, I spoke like this, or I did this, or I ran away, or I punched the wall, something like that. And what we say is, I don't even know how that happened. How did what was going on? Why did I do that? I didn't realize I was angry until the words started coming out. Or I didn't realize I was so frustrated until, gosh, when I got home, I really got angry, way out of control for the situation. So this is what we're training the mind to do, to see that there's a lot going on between the initial trigger and our behavior. We haven't trained the mind to look, to deconstruct that process. That's all we see is trigger behavior. Someone says something we don't like, we snap at them. Someone says something that hurts our feelings, we run away. Or we get angry. Trigger behavior. And what our mindfulness practice can be helpful is to actually open up that space between trigger and behavior and actually see what's going on. Because the evidence suggests that when we can see it, when we can see, oh yeah, so-and-so said this to me, and I began to feel energy racing in my body. It was uncomfortable. I began telling stories in my mind that, oh, so-and-so doesn't like me, so-and-so's out to get me. And I noticed this impulse to really strike back at this person. If we can notice all these things, then we have a greater capacity to see them, take a mindful pause, and choose how it might be most effective to respond. It doesn't mean be passive, but it means choosing, how might I speak or act in a way that helps me and others understand what's going on in this situation and communicate. Now, there's another important reason to begin to open up this process, to notice sensations, feeling tones, thoughts and stories, impulses. And that's because if you dig into this mindfulness research, what we see is that each of us as human beings has inherited from our ancestors these tendencies to act in this way. If we're experiencing pleasant feelings, we like it, then our initial instinct is to try to crave for them to be prolonged, to hold on to them, to defend them, try to keep them going, blind to anything else. Or if the initial sensations the nervous system is assessing as unpleasant, we don't like that. We tend to run away, fight, resist, blame, get angry. And our noticing these initial instinctive reactions, again, can help us to choose, do I just want to react in old habitual ways? Or can I recall that actually doing so isn't helpful? So there's a lot to gain in our lives by opening up this process between trigger and behavior. Now, I'd just like to respond to one of the comments before we do the practice. I think it was Ellie who said, I thought the idea was to try to clear the head. We often have this sense that that is what we're aiming for, but here's the truth, that we're never really going to be able to clear the mind. There's always something that's going to appear in the mind. And really, what this process is about is trying to reshape our relationship to what becomes known in the mind, to see it and not to jump at it reactively. So stuff is always going to be flowing. We're going to know sensations in the body. We're going to recognize thoughts. We're going to recognize emotions. It's going, as long as we're alive, mind is going to be active and knowing something. The question is, can we train this body-mind apparatus to take a mindful pause and to choose more consciously how to respond? So it's about learning how to relate to what is known in the mind in more helpful ways. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes doing a practice that helps to open us up to the sensations, feeling tones, thoughts and stories, impulses. It's called the 3-minute breathing space. If you'd like to look it up on the internet afterwards. I like to call it the 3-step breathing space because it doesn't really have to take 3 minutes. It could take longer or shorter. So let's start. I'll invite you to find a comfortable position for yourself. Settling into the body, coming into the present moment. And the first step in this meditation is what's often called the mindful check-in. And in this first step, the first thing we do is we turn attention to sensations of the body. Now, there are certain parts of the body which are known to you. There is tension in the body or relaxation in the body. How about the shoulders, hips, your legs, feet? What are those sensations? Feeling hot or cold? Hearing sounds that are loud or soft? Having lingering tastes in your mouth, sweet or salty? Tuning into sensations. And then also, what are the feeling tones associated with those sensations? Are they pleasant? Are they unpleasant? Are they neutral? On a scale from -10 to 10, -10 being the most intensely unpleasant, 0 being neutral, 10 being the most intensely pleasant. What's the feeling tone for you? What thoughts and stories are percolating in your mind about this moment of experience? So-and-so's out to get me. Life is unfair. I'll never get this right. Or maybe positive stories. Things are good. I hope it lasts forever. Just recognizing, knowing we all have sort of go-to or default thoughts and stories we tell. And finally, a fourth component of this first step is there any building construction of impulses and emotions? Oh, I'm feeling this urge to speak out in an aggressive way. fight or to run away or to offer a big hug. And we notice this impulse to crave, to hold on to the pleasant, and to fight, resist, act aggressively in the face of the unpleasant. So this is the first step of this meditation, the mindful check-in, training the mind to see these components of experience. Second step, what's often called the mode of mind shifter. And in this second step, we're training the mind to move from craving, resisting, fighting, the urge to act aggressively, to simply settling down and approaching and allowing what's arising in this moment. And to do that, to train the mind, we're going to drop all those thoughts, sensations, and feelings, and just turn to our normal meditation target, breath, the hands touching, that object that is safe for you, your refuge. Let's say it's the breath. And we just notice how we're breathing. Short, it's long, it's deep, it's shallow. So we're approaching our breathing sensations, and we're practicing simply allowing them to be there. Not craving, not reacting. Noticing, approaching, allowing. Breathing, knowing that you're breathing. Or if it's hands touching, knowing the sensations of hands touching. The mind wanders to bring it back. So in this second step, we're shifting the mode of mind from that craving, striving, resisting energy to one of just being. And we're helping that by targeting attention at our safe place, the breath. Now, here's the third step. We're going to practice in this third step, bringing this mental space of approaching and allowing, bringing this back to those sensations, feeling tones, stories, and seeing if we can, rather than reacting in those impulsive ways, if we can bring this attitude of approaching and allowing them to be just as they are. Bringing that momentum of breathing, noticing, approaching, allowing. And we notice the sensations. And we notice the feeling tones. Stories that we tell. Now, if we're starting to get revved up again, we go back to step 2 and turn attention back to that safe place, the refuge, the breath, the hands. So this third step is a continuous toggling back and forth, attempting to bring this mental stance of approaching and allowing two sensations, two feelings, thoughts. If it gets too animated, to bring it back simply to breathing. So I'll count backwards from 3. And when I get to 1, I'll invite you to reopen your eyes and come back to the room. 3, 2, 1. So this is something that can be done periodically during the day. It's the mindful check-in and the mode of mind shifter, away from craving, fighting, resisting, holding on, attaching, and trying to shift that emotional stance to approaching and allowing. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to enter into the chat. And if you do, please do. I'll read them out. But now I'd like to walk you through it again, but this time I'll just name the steps and I'll let you fill in the blanks. It's really up to you to find what words work for you. So finding a comfortable position for yourself. Again, this could be when you're waiting in line at the supermarket or stuck in traffic, while you're at home or at the workplace, someone says something to you, you don't like it. First step, the mindful check-in. Checking in with the sensations, feeling tones, thoughts and stories, impulses. Second step, shifting the mode of mind from craving, attaching, grabbing, clinging, resisting, fighting, to simply approaching and allowing. Tending to that safe place, your refuge. And now the third step, experimenting with bringing that mental attitude, approaching and allowing, to that wider panorama of experience, sensations, feelings, thoughts and stories, impulses. See if you can experiment with knowing that they're known in the mind, but just allowing them to be there, not feeling compelled by them one way or another. And again, we're only human. If you feel yourself lurching towards them, reacting, then switch attention back to that safe place for you. one of the end games for our practice here is to learn how to be with whatever life is presenting to us in the moment, to notice it and not be controlled by instinctive habitual reactions. To have a greater capacity to choose how to respond. First off, that involves knowing, well, what's going on in this mind and body? Similar to rain. Yes, it is, absolutely. Recognize, accept, investigate, note, navigate, nurture. And it's important for us to recognize that if we begin to feel just a little bit more space, what does that freedom feel like? Does it actually feel good not to be so controlled by those emotional impulses? It's important for us to recognize, boy, there's a little freedom here. And again, not to expect miracles, but just that taste of freedom can inspire us to practice this during the day. Train the mind to check in. And in these last couple minutes, please, if you have any comments, we're all interested in knowing them. But otherwise, to be practicing with these 3 steps. Again, you can do them anywhere, anytime. All about just training the mind and notice. The more we engage with this practice, the more the mind will get used to automatically doing it. It will engage in mindful check-ins without us directing it to do so. So I'll just leave you with a final thought or two, or our time ends for today. How do we continue this momentum? How can we learn to train this body and mind to reshape old habits to more effective and more healthy ones? The good news is that we can all do this. All we need to do is 2 things. We need to begin to practice doing it, and we need to continue practicing. A couple minutes every day or more. If you miss a day, there's always the next day. We begin again. So I'll invite you to close your eyes. We'll end with a 30-second practice. May we contemplate on the benefits of practicing mindfulness, noticing the benefits to our practice. And may we make a gentle effort to find the time to do so. So wonderful to have these minutes with you this morning. Have a good day. Be healthy. Find time to practice, and I look forward to being with you next time. Take care.